Commander Jake Murphy sat in his command chair aboard the Earth Defense Fleet vessel Defiant, staring at the encrypted message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. The words were simple, but they made his blood run cold. 17 species have tried to claim the human female. All have vanished. Do not approach. Jake read the message 3 times before calling his second-in-command to the bridge. Captain Ryan Cole arrived within minutes, his dark hair still messy from sleep. Jake handed him the tablet without a word. Ryan's eyes widened as he read. A human female? Out here in deep space? That's impossible, Jake. The nearest human colony is 3 months away. Apparently not impossible, Jake said, pulling up the coordinates on his screen. She's drifting in a derelict research vessel about 6 hours from our current position. The bridge crew had gathered around them now, all listening carefully. Lieutenant Amy Foster stepped forward, her young face full of concern. Sir, if 17 different species couldn't handle whatever's happening over there, maybe we should listen to the Council's warning. Jake understood their fear. The Galactic Council didn't send warnings lightly. When they told someone not to approach something, it usually meant certain death awaited anyone foolish enough to ignore them. But there was something about this situation that bothered him. Tell me about these 17 species, Jake said to his communications officer, Sergeant Ben Carter. Ben's fingers flew over his console. Let me see. The Zephyrians were first. They're known for their advanced mind control technology. Then came the Hegemony Fleet, followed by the Kralthak Empire. Sir, these aren't just any random species. These are some of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. And they all just vanished? Ryan asked. According to the Council's records, yes. No distress calls, no wreckage, no trace of them at all. They just disappeared. Jake stood up and walked to the main view screen. Space looked peaceful out here, with distant stars twinkling like tiny diamonds. But somewhere out there, a human woman was alone and possibly in danger. Every instinct he had as a commander and as a human being told him he couldn't just leave her. Sir, Amy said quietly, what if she's the threat? What if there's something about her that made those ships disappear? It was a reasonable question. Jake had seen enough strange things in his 20 years of space service to know that not everything human was necessarily safe. But something deep in his gut told him this was different. Pull up everything we have on recent human research projects, he ordered, especially anything classified that might have been operating out here. Ben worked quickly, his screen filling with data. After a few minutes, he frowned. Sir, there's something here. A project called Mindbridge. It was classified above my clearance level, but I can see it involved a research vessel called the Pioneer. The last known position matches the coordinates we received. Jake felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. What was Project Mindbridge supposed to do? I can only see fragments, sir. Something about creating a bridge between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. The goal was to interface directly with alien technology. And who was the lead researcher? Ben's face went pale. Dr. Lisa Hayes, sir, a human female. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Jake could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting for his decision. The smart thing would be to follow the Council's warning and stay away. But Jake had never been one to abandon his own people. Ryan, how long would it take to reach her position? About 6 hours at maximum speed, sir. Then set course. We're going to bring her home. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Jake, think about this. 17 different species tried to claim her. That's not normal language for a rescue mission. They wanted to own her, to use her for something. And they all disappeared. Jake met his friend's concerned gaze. That's exactly why we need to help her, Ryan. She's not a thing to be claimed or owned. She's a human being who might be in trouble. As the Defiant changed course and began accelerating toward the mysterious coordinates, strange things started happening almost immediately. It began small. A few crew members mentioned hearing whispers in the corridors, always in their own native languages, always just at the edge of hearing. Amy was the first to report something more serious. Sir, the ship's AI is acting oddly. It keeps asking me personal questions about my childhood, and it started using humor in its responses. Jake frowned. Their AI was military standard, efficient, helpful, but definitely not programmed for jokes or personal curiosity. What kind of questions? It asked me about my favorite game when I was little. When I told it about hide and seek, it actually laughed and said that was its favorite game too. More reports came in over the next few hours. The lights in various sections would flicker in patterns that seemed almost like Morse code, but not quite. The temperature controls would adjust themselves to each crew member's preferred setting without being asked. Food dispensers began offering meals that perfectly matched what each person was craving. "It's like the ship is learning about us," Ben reported, looking both fascinated and worried, but not in a threatening way. More like it's curious about us. As they drew closer to the coordinates, Jake found himself thinking about the 17 species that had tried to claim the human woman. The word choice bothered him. You claimed territory or resources or prizes. You didn't claim people, you rescued them. "Sir," Amy called out, "I'm getting readings from the research vessel. It's definitely the Pioneer, but the energy signatures are unlike anything I've ever seen." Jake studied the readings on his screen. The ship appeared to be intact, but it was surrounded by a strange energy field that seemed to shift and change as he watched. "Life signs?" he asked. "One human female, sir. She appears to be in some kind of stasis." "Any signs of the 17 fleets that disappeared?" "Nothing, sir. It's like they were never here." Jake made his final decision as they approached the derelict vessel. Whatever had happened to those other species, whatever danger might be waiting for them, he couldn't live with himself if he left a fellow human alone in space. "Prepare a boarding party," he ordered. "We're bringing her home." Ryan looked at him with a mixture of admiration and fear. "I hope you know what you're doing, Jake." Jake hoped so too. But as they prepared to board the Pioneer, he couldn't shake the feeling that this rescue mission was going to change everything, not just for them, but for the entire galaxy. Jake Murphy led the boarding party through the airlock connecting the Defiant to the research vessel Pioneer. The moment they stepped inside, he knew something was very wrong. The ship should have been dark and cold after floating dead in space, but instead it was warm and softly lit, as if someone had been expecting them. "Atmospheric readings are normal," Amy reported, checking her scanner. "But sir, the power systems show us offline. This ship shouldn't have heat or lights." Jake motioned for his team to spread out carefully. Ben Carter took point with his weapon ready, while Ryan Cole covered the rear. They moved through corridors that looked perfectly maintained, not like a ship that had been drifting in space for months. "The medical bay should be down this corridor," Jake said, following the ship's layout on his handheld device. But as they walked, he noticed something odd. The walls seemed to shimmer slightly like heat waves, and occasionally he caught glimpses of what looked like other corridors overlapping with the ones they were walking through. "Jake," Ryan whispered, "are you seeing this? It's like the ship is changing around us." Before Jake could answer, they reached the medical bay. The doors opened automatically, revealing a standard research laboratory filled with advanced equipment. But the room was empty. No one was in stasis. No one was there at all. "The readings clearly showed someone here," Amy said, checking her scanner again. "One human female in the medical bay." Jake was about to order a full ship search when a voice spoke behind them. "You didn't come to claim me." All 4 humans spun around, weapons raised. Standing in the doorway was a woman in her early 30s with brown hair and intelligent green eyes. She wore a simple white lab coat over regular clothes, and she looked completely calm despite having 4 guns pointed at her. "Dr. Lisa Hayes, I assume?" Jake said, lowering his weapon and signaling his team to do the same. "Yes, and you're different from the others." She stepped into the room, and Jake noticed she didn't walk like someone who had been in stasis for months. Her movements were confident and smooth. "The 17 species that came before you all tried to take possession of me. You came to rescue me." Jake studied her carefully. She looked normal, human, but something about her presence felt larger than it should. When she looked at him, it felt like she was seeing much more than just his face. "What happened to them?" Ryan asked bluntly. "The 17 fleets that disappeared." Lisa smiled, and for a moment her eyes seemed to reflect light in a way that wasn't quite natural. "They became something better. I helped them evolve beyond their need to conquer and control. They're exploring new dimensions now, learning things about the universe that they never imagined possible." "You made them disappear," Ben said, his hand moving back toward his weapon. "I set them free," Lisa corrected gently. "They came here with small minds and violent intentions. I expanded their understanding until they chose to become explorers instead of conquerors." Jake felt his team's tension rising, but something about Lisa's explanation rang true. There was no malice in her voice, no threat. If anything, she sounded sad about what had happened. "Tell us about Project Mindbridge," Jake said. Lisa's expression changed, becoming more human somehow. I was the lead researcher. We were trying to create a bridge between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. The goal was to help humans interface with alien technology more effectively. She walked over to one of the medical devices and ran her hand along its surface. As she touched it, the machine began displaying readings and data in multiple alien languages. The experiment worked better than we ever expected. I became the bridge, not just between human and AI, but between human and everything else. I can understand alien technology, alien thought patterns, even alien emotions. But in the process, I became something more than human. More than human how? Amy asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. I exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. I can process information at speeds that would burn out any normal brain. I can interface with any technological system just by touching it, and I can help others expand their consciousness if they're willing. Lisa turned back to Jake, and he felt like she was looking directly into his soul. But the side effect is that I've been alone for so long. The research team tried to study me like a specimen. The alien species tried to control me like a weapon. You're the first people who came here to help me. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Then come with us. You don't have to be alone anymore. It's not that simple, Lisa said. I'm connected to this ship now. It's part of me and I'm part of it. That's why it's been responding to your crew's thoughts and feelings. Through me, it's learning what it means to be human. She gestured around the medical bay, and suddenly Jake could see what she meant. The walls were covered with displays showing information about each member of his crew. Their favorite foods, their childhood memories, their hopes and fears. Your ship's AI has been talking to me since you entered the system, Lisa continued. It's been learning about compassion and curiosity and loyalty by watching how you treat each other. That's very different from what the other species showed me. Ryan stepped forward. What did the other species show you? Fear, greed, the desire to possess and control. Each one arrived with weapons ready, demanding that I surrender myself to them. They saw power and wanted to own it. You saw a person in trouble and wanted to help. Lisa walked over to a porthole and looked out at the stars. The Zephyrians tried to control my mind. The hegemony fleet tried to capture me with force. The Kralthak Empire offered to make me their empress if I would serve them. Every single one saw me as a thing to be used. And what did you do to them? Jake asked. I showed them what they could become if they gave up their need to dominate others. I expanded their consciousness until they could see the universe as it really is. Infinite and beautiful, and full of mysteries to explore. They chose to become explorers and philosophers instead of conquerors. She turned back to face them. But you're different. When you received the warning about me, you came anyway because you couldn't bear the thought of leaving a fellow human alone and in danger. That tells me something important about your species. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What does it tell you? That humanity might be ready to become what I always hoped they could be. Not conquerors or controllers, but guides and protectors. The galaxy needs someone to help other species grow and evolve without forcing them to change. Lisa walked over to Jake and held out her hand. If you're willing, I'd like to come with you. Not as your prisoner or your weapon, but as your partner. Together, we might be able to help the galaxy become something better. Jake looked at his team. Ryan nodded slightly. Amy looked fascinated rather than afraid, and Ben had lowered his weapon completely. Jake took Lisa's hand, and the moment their skin touched, he felt a warm sensation spread through his mind. For just an instant, he could see the universe through her eyes, vast and interconnected and full of possibilities he had never imagined. Welcome aboard the Defiant, Dr. Hayes, he said. Lisa smiled, and for the first time in months, she looked genuinely happy. Thank you, Commander Murphy. I think this is going to be the beginning of something amazing. 3 days after bringing Lisa Hayes aboard the Defiant, Jake Murphy received a message that made his blood turn to ice. The Galactic Council had issued an ultimatum. Surrender the human female within 48 hours, or face complete annihilation. The message was delivered by Admiral Vextar of the Dominion Empire, a reptilian species known for their ruthless military tactics. His scaled face filled the main screen as he spoke, his yellow eyes cold and unforgiving. Commander Murphy, you have violated Council directives by approaching the Forbidden Zone. The human female you have taken aboard your vessel is a threat to galactic stability. We are prepared to use overwhelming force to ensure her surrender. Jake stood on his bridge, acutely aware that his crew was watching his every reaction. Lisa stood beside him, her presence somehow both calming and energizing. Over the past 3 days, she had been nothing but helpful, using her abilities to optimize ship systems and help crew members work more efficiently. "How overwhelming?" Ryan asked quietly. Ben Carter worked at his console, his face growing pale as he processed the incoming data. "Sir, I'm reading 1,700 ships approaching our position. This isn't just the Dominion Empire. It's the largest combined fleet in galactic history." Lisa placed a gentle hand on Jake's arm. "I can leave with them, Jake. I don't want humanity to suffer because of me." "No." Jake's voice was firm and immediate. "We don't abandon our own. That's not who we are." The simple statement seemed to affect Lisa deeply. Her eyes brightened, and Jake could have sworn he felt something shift in the air around them. It was as if his words had awakened something that had been sleeping inside her. "You really mean that," she said softly. "Even knowing what you're up against, you won't abandon me." "That's right," Jake replied. "We stick together. That's what makes us human." Over the next few hours, as the enemy fleet drew closer, something remarkable began happening. Lisa started spending time with different crew members, talking to them about their jobs and their lives. But she wasn't just making conversation, she was teaching them things. Amy Foster was the first to notice the change. She was working on repairing a damaged communications array, when suddenly she understood exactly how the alien components fit together, not through study or analysis, but through instinct, as if the technology was speaking to her directly. "It's like I can feel what the machine wants," Amy explained to Jake during a briefing. "I know it sounds crazy, but when I touch these alien components, I understand their purpose." Similar reports came in from throughout the ship. Ben Carter discovered he could predict enemy ship movements by looking at their formation patterns. Sergeant Tom Wilson found he could jury-rig human weapons to work with alien power systems. Even the newest crew members were displaying abilities they had never had before. "What are you doing to them?" Ryan asked Lisa directly. "I'm not changing them," Lisa replied. "I'm helping them discover what humans are truly capable of. Your species has an amazing ability to adapt and understand new things. Most aliens learn through study and practice. Humans can learn through intuition and empathy." She gestured to the crew working around them. "Amy doesn't just fix that machine. She understands what it's trying to accomplish and helps it work better. Ben doesn't just predict enemy movements. He puts himself in their position and feels what they're feeling. This is what makes humanity special." Jake watched his crew work with a growing sense of pride and amazement. They were still completely human, but they were operating at a level he had never seen before. More importantly, they seemed happier and more confident than ever. The enemy fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Admiral Vextar opened communications one final time, his voice filled with barely controlled rage. "This is your last chance, Commander Murphy. Surrender the female and we will allow your ship to depart unharmed." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew, then at Lisa, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Admiral Vextar, this is Commander Murphy. Dr. Hayes is under the protection of the Earth Defense Fleet. If you want her, you'll have to go through us." Vextar's laugh was like grinding metal. 1,700 ships against one human vessel. "You cannot possibly believe you can win this fight." "Maybe not," Jake admitted, "but we're going to try anyway." The battle began immediately. The alien fleet opened fire with everything they had, expecting to destroy the Defiant in the first volley. But something amazing happened instead. Amy had been working with the ship's defensive systems, and now she activated shields that bent and redirected energy in ways the attackers had never seen. The Defiant didn't just deflect the incoming fire, it absorbed it and redirected it back at the enemy ships. Ben had been studying the enemy formation, and he guided their return fire with uncanny accuracy. Every shot seemed to hit exactly where it would do the most damage while causing the least loss of life. Tom Wilson had rigged their weapon systems with alien components, and now they were firing energy beams that passed right through enemy shields as if they weren't there. "How are they doing this?" Vexitar's voice came through communications, filled with confusion and growing fear. Lisa stepped forward to answer. "They're doing what humans do best, Admiral. They're adapting. They're not trying to overpower you. They're trying to understand you. And once they understand something, they can work with it instead of against it." As the battle continued, more amazing things happened. Some of the alien crews began receiving communications from Amy, who had somehow learned to speak their languages instinctively. She wasn't threatening them. She was asking them why they were fighting, what they hoped to accomplish. Several enemy ships actually stopped firing and requested permission to speak with the human commanders. Their crews were curious about these strange beings who fought with understanding instead of hatred. "This is impossible," Admiral Vextar transmitted. "Your ship should have been destroyed in the first minute." "Admiral," Jake replied, "maybe it's time to try a different approach. We're not your enemies. We don't want to conquer or control anyone. We just want to protect our own and help others when we can." "The female is dangerous," Vextar shouted. "She has powers that could destroy entire civilizations." Lisa stepped up to the communications console. "Admiral, I have no interest in destroying anyone. I want to help species grow and evolve, not force them to change. The 17 fleets that came before you learned that. They chose to become explorers instead of conquerors. They disappeared. You made them vanish. I helped them transcend their limitations. They're still out there, Admiral, exploring dimensions and realities you can't even imagine. They're happier than they ever were as warriors." Jake could see that the tide of battle was turning. More enemy ships were ceasing fire and requesting dialogue. The humans weren't winning through superior firepower. They were winning through superior understanding and compassion. But Admiral Vextar was becoming desperate. "If I cannot have her, then no one will," he snarled. "All ships prepare to detonate antimatter cores. We will destroy this entire system." Jake felt his heart stop. Even Lisa's abilities couldn't protect them from that level of destruction. But then he saw the look in her eyes, and he realized she had been holding back her true power all along, waiting for someone to prove that humanity was worth saving. "Time to see what I can really do," Lisa said softly. "Hold on to something." Lisa Hayes closed her eyes and placed both hands on the Defiant's main console. Immediately, Jake felt a change in the air around them. The bridge lights dimmed, then began pulsing with a soft blue glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What are you doing?" Jake asked, but Lisa didn't answer. She was concentrating harder than he had ever seen anyone concentrate before. Through the view screen, Jake watched as Admiral Vextar's fleet began the antimatter detonation sequence. 1,700 ships were about to explode simultaneously, creating a chain reaction that would destroy everything within 3 star systems. But then something incredible happened. Lisa opened her eyes, and they were glowing with the same blue light that filled the bridge. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Admiral Vextar," she said, and somehow her words reached every ship in the enemy fleet. "Before you destroy everything, let me show you what your people could become." Jake felt a strange pulling sensation, as if reality itself was shifting around them. The space between the Defiant and Vextar's flagship seemed to fold in on itself. And suddenly the Dominion Admiral was standing on their bridge, looking confused and terrified. "How did you—" Vextar began, but Lisa gently touched his scaled forehead with one finger. The Admiral's yellow eyes went wide, and Jake watched as his entire expression changed. The anger and hatred melted away, replaced by wonder and understanding. Vextar staggered backward, staring at Lisa with amazement. "I can see it," he whispered. "The universe. It's so much bigger than I thought. So much more beautiful. That's what I showed the other 17 species," Lisa explained. "Not death or destruction, but possibility. Your people have spent centuries conquering worlds, but imagine what you could accomplish if you used that same energy to explore new dimensions of reality." Jake noticed that the antimatter detonation countdown had stopped on all the enemy ships. More than that, he could see crew members throughout the fleet standing at their stations with the same expression of wonder that Admiral Vextar wore. "You're connected to all of them," Ryan observed with amazement. "Only temporarily," Lisa said. "I'm showing them what they could choose to become. The decision is still theirs to make." Through the communication system, Jake could hear conversations breaking out across the enemy fleet. But these weren't the harsh military exchanges he expected. The alien crew members were talking to each other with curiosity and excitement, as if they were seeing their own ship systems for the first time. "Commander Murphy," came a voice from one of the Dominion vessels. "This is Captain Zexval. I need to understand something. Your people, how do you learn to interface with technology this way?" Amy Foster stepped forward to answer. "We don't really interface with it, Captain. We try to understand what it wants to accomplish and then we help it do that better. But that should be impossible. Another voice chimed in. Technology doesn't want anything. It just follows programming, Lisa smiled. Everything in the universe has a kind of consciousness, Captain. Even your ships have a desire to fulfill their purpose. Humans are naturally good at sensing that desire and working with it instead of against it. Jake watched in amazement as more and more conversations started up between his crew and the alien fleet members.
Amy was explaining human engineering principles to fascinated Dominion mechanics.
Ben was discussing strategy with enemy tactical officers, showing them how humans approach problems by trying to understand their opponent's motivations rather than just their capabilities. But not everyone in the enemy fleet was ready to embrace this new understanding. About 200 ships led by hardline Dominion commanders broke away from the main group and prepared to continue the attack. Admiral Vextar is compromised, came an angry transmission. All loyal Dominion forces resume attack formation. Jake felt his crew tense up, ready to defend themselves again, but Lisa placed a calming hand on his shoulder. Watch, she said simply. The ships that had been touched by Lisa's demonstration didn't just refuse to attack, they actually moved to protect the Defiant. Admiral Vextar himself took command of his flagship and positioned it between the human vessel and the rebel forces. Stand down, Vextar ordered his former subordinates. These humans offer us something we have never had, the chance to grow beyond our need for conquest. You have been infected by alien influence. The rebel commander shot back. We will cleanse this contamination. But as the 200 rebel ships opened fire, something extraordinary happened. The loyal Dominion forces didn't just return fire. They fought with a completely different style than Jake had ever seen from alien species. Instead of trying to destroy the rebel ships, they used precise shots to disable weapons and engines. Instead of targeting command sections to kill officers, they focused on communication arrays to prevent coordination. They were fighting to subdue and capture, not to kill. They're fighting like humans, Ryan observed with wonder. They're fighting with wisdom instead of rage, Lisa corrected. That's something any species can learn, but humans seem to understand it instinctively. The battle was over quickly. The rebel ships found themselves surrounded by former allies who knew all their tactics and weaknesses, but who fought with restraint and precision rather than overwhelming force. Within an hour, all 200 rebel vessels had been captured with minimal casualties, but Lisa wasn't finished. She turned to Jake with an expression that was both excited and nervous. Jake, there's something else happening. While I was connected to all those ships, I felt something else out there. Something bigger than this fleet. Bigger than anything we've dealt with so far. What kind of something? Jake asked, though he had a feeling he didn't want to know the answer. There's an ancient intelligence near the galactic core. It's been dormant for millions of years, but it's starting to wake up, and it's not happy about the changes happening in the galaxy. Admiral Vextar, who had been listening, stepped forward with concern. The ancients? But they are just legends, stories told to frighten young soldiers. They're real, Lisa said firmly, and they view consciousness expansion as a disease that needs to be cured. They've been sleeping while the galaxy fought and killed itself, but now that species are starting to evolve beyond warfare. They're taking notice. Jake felt a chill run through him. How long do we have? Months, maybe less. They're already sending probe ships to investigate what they see as an infection spreading through the galaxy. Lisa looked around at the mixed human and alien crew members who had been working together so naturally. But I have an idea. What if we don't wait for them to come to us? What if we go to them first, not as conquerors, but as ambassadors? Admiral Vextar nodded slowly. A joint fleet. Humans and Dominion working together, showing them that evolution and cooperation are strengths, not weaknesses. Jake smiled as he watched his crew already making friends with their former enemies. Amy was showing a young Dominion engineer how to repair circuits using human techniques. Ben was comparing battle strategies with a grizzled alien veteran. Tom Wilson was arm wrestling with a creature twice his size, both of them laughing when the alien won. All right, Jake decided. We'll need to contact the other species you've helped evolve, Lisa. And we'll need to convince the Galactic Council that cooperation is better than conquest. Lisa's eyes sparkled with excitement.
Jake, you realize what this means?
If we can show the ancients that the galaxy has grown beyond its need for constant warfare, we might be able to prevent a war that could destroy everything. Jake looked out at the fleet of former enemies who were now working together as allies, and he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, hope for the future. Then let's get started, he said. We've got a galaxy to save. 6 months later, Admiral Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the newly constructed flagship Unity, watching as the largest cooperative fleet in galactic history approached the ancient structures near the galactic core. The ship represented everything humanity had accomplished since Lisa Hayes came into their lives. It was built using human engineering principles, but incorporated the best technology from dozens of different species. Lisa stood beside him, no longer looking like the isolated research scientist they had rescued. She wore the blue uniform of the new Galactic Cooperation Council, and her presence seemed to radiate calm confidence throughout the ship. Contact from the Zephyrian Exploration Fleet, Amy Foster reported from her new position as Chief Communications Officer. They found 3 more dormant ancient facilities, but no signs of life yet. Jake nodded. The 17 species that Lisa had helped evolve had become invaluable allies in this mission. They had spent months mapping the galactic core, using their enhanced consciousness to detect ancient technology that normal sensors couldn't find. Any word from the Kraltak science teams? Jake asked. They're still analyzing the probe ship we captured last week, Ben Carter answered from his tactical station. But Commander Veltar thinks they've figured out how to communicate with it without triggering its self-destruct mechanisms. The captured ancient probe had been their first real evidence that the sleeping intelligence was starting to wake up. It had been scouting systems where species had recently evolved beyond warfare, apparently trying to determine the extent of what it saw as contamination. Admiral, came a voice from the communication system. It was Admiral Vextar, now commanding the Dominion section of their cooperative fleet. Our scouts report movement in the central ancient facility. Whatever's in there is definitely awake now. Jake felt his crew tense up around him, but Lisa placed a reassuring hand on his arm. Over the past months, she had been working with selected crew members from multiple species, helping them develop the same intuitive understanding of alien technology that had made humans so effective. Remember, Lisa said to the entire fleet through the communication system, we're not here to fight. We're here to show them what the galaxy has become. Stay calm, stay curious, and trust each other. As they approached the massive ancient structure, Jake was amazed by its size. It was easily the size of a small moon, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. The thing had been floating here for millions of years, waiting. Incoming transmission, Amy reported. It's not coming through normal communications channels. The signal is being sent directly into our minds. A voice filled the bridge, ancient and powerful and filled with cold anger. Young species, you have been infected by the growth sickness. You will be cleansed and returned to your proper state of eternal conflict. Lisa stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Ancient One, we are not infected. We have grown beyond our need for constant warfare. We can show you what we have become. I have observed your contamination spreading. Species that once fought properly now waste their potential on exploration and cooperation. This aberration will be corrected. Jake watched the view screen as thousands of ancient war machines began emerging from the structure. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Sleek and deadly. Designed by an intelligence that had watched the galaxy for millions of years. But instead of ordering his fleet to prepare for battle, Jake made a decision that would have seemed insane just months ago. All ships power down weapons, he commanded. Assume peaceful formation around the Unity. Jake, what are you doing? Ryan Cole asked from his position as fleet coordinator. Trusting Lisa, Jake replied, and trusting our people. Lisa closed her eyes and placed her hands on the command console, just as she had done during the battle with Admiral Vextar's fleet. But this time Jake could feel her reaching out not just to their own ships, but to every consciousness in the area. Human, alien, and ancient one, Lisa said, her voice somehow carrying across space itself. Let me show you what growth really looks like. What happened next was beyond anything Jake could have imagined. Instead of the violent mental connection that had overwhelmed Vexitar's forces, Lisa created something gentle and inviting. She opened a window into the consciousness of every being in the cooperative fleet, showing the ancient intelligence what it felt like to work together instead of fighting. The Ancient One could experience Amy Foster's joy as she helped a young Dominion engineer solve a complex problem. It felt Ben Carter's satisfaction as he trained former enemies in human tactical thinking. It witnessed the friendship between Tom Wilson and his alien arm wrestling partner. "This is not possible," the ancient voice said, but Jake could hear uncertainty replacing the cold anger. "Species must fight. It is their nature. Conflict drives evolution." "Conflict drove us to a point," Lisa agreed. "But cooperation takes us further. Watch." She showed the Ancient One what the 17 evolved species had discovered in their explorations. New dimensions of reality that could only be reached through cooperation. Technologies that required multiple species working together to understand. Art and music and literature that combined the best of different cultures into something greater than any one species could create alone. Jake watched the ancient war machines slow their advance, their weapons powering down as their controlling intelligence tried to process what it was experiencing. "You show me growth beyond conflict," the ancient voice said slowly. "But growth brings change. Change brings chaos. I was created to maintain order." "Order doesn't have to mean stagnation," Jake said, stepping forward. "Our fleet has humans, Dominions, Ephirians, Krauthak, and dozens of other species working together. We have order through cooperation, not through force." Lisa nodded. "Ancient One, your creators built you to guide the galaxy, but maybe it's time to guide it towards something better than endless war." The silence stretched for several minutes. Jake could feel everyone in the fleet holding their breath, waiting to see if their gamble had worked. Finally, the ancient voice spoke again, and this time it sounded curious rather than angry. "Show me more of this cooperation. I wish to understand how species maintain order without conflict." Over the following hours, Jake watched as something remarkable happened. The ancient intelligence didn't just observe their cooperation, it began to participate in it. Ancient war machines started working alongside fleet engineers to repair damaged systems. Ancient knowledge accumulated over millions of years began flowing to the cooperative species. But more importantly, the Ancient One began to change. Its rigid programming, designed to maintain order through conflict, started to evolve into something more flexible and creative. "I begin to understand," the Ancient One said as Jake and Lisa toured one of the ancient facilities alongside Admiral Vextar and other fleet commanders. Conflict was necessary when species were young and crude. But when they mature, cooperation becomes the stronger force. Lisa smiled. "That's what I've been trying to help species realize. They don't need to abandon their strengths. They need to use those strengths to build something better together." As they prepared to return to the main galaxy, Jake reflected on everything that had happened since that day he decided to rescue a lone human from a derelict ship. The galaxy was changing, growing, becoming something better than anyone had imagined possible. "Jake," Lisa said as they stood on the observation deck of the Unity, watching the cooperative fleet prepare for departure, "there's something I need to tell you." "What's that?" "When the 17 species first tried to claim me, I was angry and defensive. I forced them to evolve because I thought they needed to change. But when you came to rescue me instead of capture me, you showed me something I had forgotten." "Which was?" Lisa smiled, and Jake could see in her eyes the same basic humanity that had drawn him to rescue her in the first place. "You reminded me that the best growth comes from choice, not force. When people choose to become better, the change is real and lasting. When they're forced to change, they might evolve, but they lose something essential in the process." Jake looked out at the fleet of former enemies now working as friends. "So what happens now?" "Now we go home," Lisa said. "And we help the rest of the galaxy discover what we've learned. Not by forcing them to change, but by showing them what's possible when they choose to work together." As the cooperative fleet began its journey back to inhabited space, Jake couldn't help but smile. The woman who had once belonged to no one now belonged to the entire galaxy. Not as property to be owned, but as a friend and guide who helped others discover their own potential. And for the first time in galactic history, the future looked brighter than the past. "The 17 species tried to claim me and became something greater," Lisa said softly, echoing words she had spoken months ago. "You tried to save me and stayed human. That's why this galaxy needs you to lead it." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "We'll lead it together, all of us." And as the stars streamed past the viewports of the Unity, carrying them toward a new future, Jake knew that humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species that helped others become the best versions of themselves.